A closer look at the 57th chapter of Jin Ping Mei, the strange generous donation and the scrawled birthday banquet. For a long time, chapter 57 was the most famous chapter of Jin Ping Mei. Even those who have not read Jin Ping Mei will know the famous line in this chapter. We heard that the Buddha in the Western heaven only wanted gold to pave the ground, and the 10 palaces of the underworld also needed some tents. As long as I use up this property to do good things, even if I rape Chang'e, rape the weaver girl, kidnap Zhu Fiqiang, and steal the daughter of the Queen Mother of the West, my wealth will not diminish. Money can make ghosts go round, and wealth and honor can pour out blessings from the sky. Simon King's arrogance guides the universe. However, if we really use up all our possessions for good deeds, how can we get such wealth? The opening chapter is Ifukuji Temple. Yangfu Temple is an important temple in Jin Ping Mei. Simon King went to Yangfu Temple to play tricks with his sworn brothers, and it was here to see off He Qianhu, Father Zhu, and Kai Zhuangyuan after his promotion. Since many farewells were seen here, even Kai Zhuangyuan, who was promoted to the imperial censor, could stay here, so it was also a decent place. In chapter 49, Abbot Dao Jian reported the condition of the temple. My dissatisfied father said that this temple was originally built by Zhou Shu's father. He had no money and food to repair it during his long stay, so it was in ruins. Simon King agreed wholeheartedly. It turns out to be the incense courtyard of Master Zhou in your garrison. I saw that his village is not far away. No matter how important it is, you can report it to your Master Zhou and write a fate book. If you do more incense elsewhere, I will also help you. Give me some charity. Since Yangfu Temple is the incense house of the Zhou family, the Zhou family is of course the leader in fundraising. At the beginning of the 57th chapter, all these previous events were forgotten, and the predecessor of Yangfu Temple was Ray. Explained, starting from the ancestor of Wan Hui to the Taoist elder who was born in the West Indian country. The elder remembered the promise made by the high official Simon when Kai Yashi said goodbye to him before, and hurriedly visited Simon King's house. Simon King, a shrewd businessman, is described by the author as a man who spends money freely. His generosity in giving to the temple and his sister-in-law and his respectful speech are simply embarrassing. Not only Simon King was out of shape, but also Earl Ying. The Count's response was less like a pistachio and more like a debt collector. 56th time. Just after being sent away, he came again inexplicably. He came as soon as he came, and even encouraged Simon King to bleed. Brother, since you have such good intentions to make a wish for your nephew, why not do it alone? This is also a small matter. Simon King held the pen and said with a smile, weak power, weak power. The Earl added, a few can help 1,000. Simon King smiled again and said, weak strength, weak strength. You must know that in the 56th chapter, Earl Ying visited Simon King's house for the first time to intercede for Chang Jiji and help him borrow money. Simon King returned, when I have the money, I can exchange it together. This time Earl Ying asked Simon King to bear the sole responsibility of repairing the desolate Yangfu Temple. How much money would this cost? Simon King resigned because he was weak, but Earl Ying asked for 1,000 taels of silver even though he had very little. This Simon is so ruthless in asking for money. How can he compare to the talented Earl Ying, who sounds like he has Simon King's best interests at heart? Simon King donated 500 taels and promised, every one of my internal officials, eunuchs, and prefecture and county warehouse inspectors is in love with me. I will go to the booklet tomorrow and ask them to write. If you write, I will not limit it to 302 taels, 100, 150. Guan King and the teacher will accomplish this good thing. Zhou Xiaobai seemed to have been completely forgotten. He completely forgot why Earl Ying came to visit. But Simon King remembered that he wanted Earl Ying to be a guest to thank his relatives and friends. Earl Ying had to wait in the living room of Simon King's house for the guests who came to the banquet. Simon King entered the inner courtyard, took a look at Pan Jinlian, who was sleeping on her gums, and Li Ping'er, who was coaxing the child, entered Wu Yu's mother's room. Strangely enough, Simon King left 500 taels for his son and entered the inner courtyard. He should have mentioned this matter to Li Ping'er, but it turned out that he went to Pan Jinlian's room. Later, He went to Li Ping's children's room, and because the child was crying, he went to Wu Yu's mother's room. This is not like the fatherly Simon King. Ansu and Aunt Wang came unexpectedly and barged in without avoiding the suspicion between men and women. Ansu also forgot the pain of being sentenced by Simon King in the Yemen to take off her clothes, get 20 spanks, and ordered her to return to secular life. She was kind and generous in front of Simon King, bowed to Simon King, and said, "Dad, you fell down." Home, Pan Jinlian and Li Pinger went to Yun Young's place together. Naturally, it was strange here. Pan Jinlian was lying on the bed when she heard Wu Yunyang's sister-in-law talking. She thought it was the previous scene, so she came forward to listen. He walked to Yunyang's room with Li Pinger, who wanted to protect brother Guan. How can I hear the conversation in Yunyang's room while lying on the bed? What was the situation like in the previous episode? Pan Jinlian, who came to Yunyang's room, murmured to her face and could not pretend to be affectionate. "I'm so clean-mouthed, so I came to kiss the child." As soon as Simon King mentioned that he went to Yangfu Temple to raise funds and open some money himself, Ansu was so excited that he hurriedly promoted the great merits of printing scriptures. Simon King smiled and said, "Auntie, please sit down and tell me your merits in detail, and I will follow you." He also regards money as dirt. This is not difficult. I just don't know how many papers, how many bindings, how many printings are required for this volume of scripture. I need to have a detailed number so that I can move it. After being so generous, the most hasty, sloppy and contradictory banquet in Simon King's house came. It's said to be rushed, because this time and the 56th time are on the same day. When he got up early, Simon King felt that he was tired of drinking, so he excused himself from Prime Minister Zhou's invitation to drink, and received Chang Jiji and Earl Ying, who came to enjoy the autumn breeze. After the Earl took his leave, Simon King remembered that he wanted to thank his relatives and friends. So he asked the young man to prepare the meal and go separately to invite everyone. Then Earl Ying came to visit again, helped the Yangfu Temple Taoist elders lobby, took on the task of accompanying the guests, and waited for Simon King's relatives and friends. After Simon King gave 30 taels of silver to Ansu and Aunt Wang, the book boy hurriedly came to report, "All the invited guests have arrived." Who are the guests? The only ones missing are Uncle Wu, Uncle Hua, Zida and Chang Jiji. The thank you banquet, invitation on the same day, and attendance at the banquet on the same day obviously goes against the common sense of life. Even though Simon King has a high position and high authority, the relatives and friends he invites are also his own people. There is no formality. There is no need to hand out cards, and time has to be considered. As usual, I had just borrowed 12 taels of silver from Simon King and was busy buying rice and clothes. There was still a question mark whether the boy would meet anyone when he came to the house. What's more, Chang Jiji is a guest, and Earl Ying is even more so. It is quite strange to ask the second brother to accompany you here. What's more, if there are male guests, what about the guests in each house? As for the banquet dishes, it can be said in one sentence: big fish, big meat, and latest fruits will be served together. Think of Simon King's invitation to Jia Tixing. Two young men put out various chickens, hoofs, geese, ducks, and fresh fish in square boxes for dinner. After eating first, we took the guys away and brought out all the vegetables and wine. Simon King invited Kai Yashi and Song Yashi. We have finished serving wine and enjoying the banquet, and now we are going to present the cutting path. There are countless delicacies, peach blossoms in the soup, and the sound of singing and dancing, and the excitement before eating. The two attendants on the sedan chair each had 50 bottles of wine, 500 snacks, and 100 kilograms of cooked meat. Wu Yunyang invited Ansu to have tea with him. A large table of vegetables and snacks was set up, which was very unusual. The dishes of the banquet can be briefly described, but a banquet involving different people cannot be described by the click of big fish and meat. Qian Shaofei once said that among the 5 additional chapters, the 57th chapter is considered the worst. The text is perfunctory, just enough space, and the preface does not match the follower. Although there are many inconsistencies between the foreword and the afterword, The general framework of this episode should be the original. Ximon King must have given up his money to rebuild Yangfu Temple, Chapter 89. Uncle Wu mentioned that Ximon King once left dozens of taels of silver in this temple. Brother Guaner is in poor health, and his family has printed scriptures or promised to do so. Ximon King drinks and has fun with his relatives and friends. According to Chapter 58, it should be his relatives and friends celebrating Ximon's birthday. Although there are some golden sentences this time, they don't quite match the characters. The strange donation, the misshaped people, the scrawled thank you banquet. You can feel Zhang Ailing's confusion. What's going on? What happened to this book? Fortunately, another time begins, and we can get out of the tunnel with a bright eye. A closer look at Chapter 58 of Jin Ping Mei, Fighting with Others, is endless fun. After 5 episodes of forgery, the situation immediately changed. As Zhang Ailing said, I had always thought that at least Jin Ping Mei was complete. It was only 80 or 9 years ago that I heard Hainan, a sinologist specializing in Chinese novels, say that chapters 53 to 57 were written by 2 unrelated people. I was very shocked. Looking back, I immediately remembered that when I was reading, there was a gray area that was boring and not very clear in fact. That was where the donkey's head was wrong and the horse's mouth was confusing. I went on a tour in Tokyo to see Singing Boys and Chu Yan, a 15-year-old singer. But they all turned out to be useless and left me with no impression. I thought to myself, what's going on? What's going on with this book? Just as I was wondering, another episode started, and suddenly my eyes lit up, as if I had emerged from a tunnel. In this 58th chapter, all the stumbling plots and inexplicable actions have been swept away, and the characters have all come alive. He began to speak calmly and meticulously again, taking his time and eloquently. Sun Zui finally dared to call herself Sun Yang in front of several prostitutes because of Ximon Kingji's lucky chance. Her concubine's confession roused behind-the-scenes ridicule and made readers see a farce. Zhang Aiyu, the newcomer to Huaji who always just laughs and keeps silent in the face of Ximon King's power and anger, makes her official debut. She looked innocent and innocent. However, soon, she will become Sister Li Gui's most powerful opponent, and single-handedly start a luxurious and upgraded version of Ximon King's career. Meng Yulu took the initiative to give alms, and even Pan Jinlian showed a little bit of kindness that he hadn't seen in a long time, perhaps the only remaining kindness. Everything is good, everything is developing in a healthy way, everything is proud of the officialdom, shopping malls and love affairs. Flowers are blooming. Ximon King even specially hired a scholar to be a copywriter. Ximon King is full of pride and ready to enter his new era. It seems that a perfect comedy life is waiting for him. There can be iterations, but there can't be comedy. There are all kinds of happiness in Jin Ping Mei, but there is no comedy. Happiness is driven by desire, and human desire is unlimited. Infinite satisfaction will of course trigger infinite dissatisfaction. Pan Jinlian really couldn't bear it anymore. She had used all the tricks behind the scenes. In front of Wu Yunyang, she once falsely accused Li Ping'er of being arrogant and rude. Intending to disrespect her aunt, in front of Ximon King, she reminded Li Ping'er that he was suspected of stealing public property. Almost in front of everyone, it was hinted that the child might not live long, but these are completely ineffective. Especially Ximon King not only did not believe her slander, but he became furious and stood firmly on Li Ping'er's side. This is not a fall from grace, but a complete failure. The simplest interpretation of Pan Jinlian's anger towards Li Ping'er is of course jealousy. There is definitely an element of jealousy, but it's not that simple. The character Pan Jinlian has a lot of problems: greedy, vicious, lustful. There is almost no moral integrity at all. These are all correct, but they are not the main thing. Her biggest fault, her Achilles heel, is pride. In the words wine, sex, wealth and energy, Pan Jinlian means qi. Pan Jinlian was born in poverty and had a bad fate. She suffered many beatings from society. But she was not killed or rendered numb every time. It is a step-by-step, rising step-by-step, and auspicious in every situation. Everyone thought that she relied on her beauty. No. Where is the beauty shortage in Ximon Sing? beauty is her resource, which is of course a scarce resource, but it is not her most core resource. Her core resource is actually her wit and intelligence. This is why Pan Jinlian maintains strong confidence in herself. She is literate, good at music, eloquent, and active in thinking. She is a counselor and a warrior, able to plan and execute. In order to achieve her goals, her behavior is full of self-contempt and self-deprecation, but to her, it's the small section. All tactical means must be subordinate to strategic goals. At first glance, it looks like pandering, but in essence it is hunting. She wants to win. Only through continuous victory can she overcome her inferiority complex and maintain her pride. Therefore, when she faced Simon King, when she faced Wu Yunyang, the head wife, and when she faced rich people like Li Ping'er and Meng Yulu, she was calm without any stage fright. He jokes when he should, teases when he should, and even shows a little sense of superiority from time to time. It is also because of this that she instinctively hates idiots like Qiu Ju and despises idiots like Sun Sui. She only favors Chun Mai, who has a temper and self-esteem, and treats her like a sister, have confidence and pride. This bit of arrogance is the foundation of her life. However, as Adler said in Inferiority and Transcendence, for everyone the world is never objective. What we perceive is never the way it is, but what we have processed through our thinking. After Li Ping'er gave birth to a son, Pan Jinlian's pride was overturned, the family's extreme love for the child, Li Ping'er's treatment as a hero. And even Pan Jinlian's own mother felt that her grievances had nothing to do with it, and that protecting the child was the top priority. The world Pan Jinlian was familiar with became unfamiliar. She couldn't figure it out. In her opinion, childbirth was a random event that relied entirely on luck rather than ability. How could it be so important? The world shouldn't be like this. It's completely wrong and very unfair. So, it's up to her to end this injustice. If your child is dead, don't talk about giving up the scriptures. You can't even give up thousands of miles of mountains and rivers. The devil grew and she was ready. A closer look at chapter 59 of Jin Ping Mei, who sounded the death knell. Death is something that we don't have to rush for. Before death completely covers us, we can enjoy the joy of life. Death is inevitable. And all the wealth, poverty, love, hate, greed, and delusion will eventually be slowly wiped away by death, leaving only a few memories lost in the rolling dust of the world. Simon King, who was now making waves in King County, did not expect to die at all. This was the highlight of his life. In the capital, his godfather Kai Taishi has unparalleled power. His business empire gradually expands, with 10 trucks of goods entering the house, and profits rolling in dozens of times. His hands and eyes are open to the sky, and he has a handwriting, and only 30 taels of silver for 10 large satin carriages. The lovely beauties are also here with just a wave of your hand. In the previous birthday celebration, Zhang Aiyu took Qiao, and Simon King didn't just send Diane into platoon troops to come at the first call. Now that the satin was put into storage and everything was settled, Simon King thought of Zhang Aiyu, who was smiling and silent. Zhang Aiyu is now the chief prostitute in King County. She leads the fashion in King County with her dresses and shoes. She is also good at seduce men with her posture. She was late for a banquet at Simon's house, so Simon King threatened her and was silent when he scolded her. The same was true when Simon King arrived at the Zhang family. First, the madam conveyed Aiyu's tenderness. When I came to my father's house, I saw so many people. I don't know how bluffing he is. He has been nude and spoiled since he was a child. Look! He didn't get up until very late. It's time for me to hurry up. Several times, I said that Daddy is coming today, so you should get up early and clean up. He refused and stayed up until late. The words I usually are written on the outside of the room. Inside the room, yellow windows and embroidered curtains, brocade mattresses and flower beds, a strange fragrance, extremely elegant. Zhang Aiyu, on her head is a silk Hangzhou tuan, which is combed with black and glossy black clouds. The clouds are piled with crows, just like light smoke and dense mist. Wearing a pair of white lotus root silk fairy clothes, a purple silk skirt with emerald patterns, and red mandarin duck and phoenix beak shoes. It is the beauty of freshness. A money transaction always has to have some lingering gestures to be particularly moving. No wonder love occurs in brothels. At the beginning, Wang Po once said that if she wanted to be exposed, Pan Lu and Deng Xiaoxian were indispensable. Now, if Simon King wants to be in the limelight, he doesn't have to spare time for his good looks and affection. However, no man wants a woman to only care about his money. And the same is true for Simon King. He is like a donkey in front of a woman. Simon King was so happy after taking Hu Monk's medicine that he neither ate wine nor tea, but only wanted to have sex. This is the origin of the Simon King Du Sun-shocked love moon. The vulgarity of the title matches the content. No matter how elegant and charming Zheng Aiyu is, Simon King can only experience the animal joy under the bed. Simon King's cheating attracted the attention of his wife and concubines. The newly discovered Wang Liuer naturally became the object of suspicion. The old Yu Diao Dian refused to tell, but Chen Hong, the young man, solved the mystery. Chen Hong, who traveled thousands of miles from Yangzhou to the capital and was sent to Shandong, learned many southern songs and looked like a southern barbarian when he arrived in Shandong. In the eyes of Man Shaoxi, the Zheng family is special. The younger one, Dian and Qin Tong brothers, and my father, went in through a gate building and walked down a few streets until we arrived at a house. Only half of the door was inlaid with saw teeth. There was a "Your Majesty, you are dressed like a flower." Grandma Liu's view of the Jia family in the future must have been inspired by Chen Hong's view of the Zheng family. This unfamiliar perspective allows readers from far away to see their facial expressions. I don't recognize him. He looks like my mother wearing this fake shell on her head. Entering inside, a white-headed grandmother came out and bowed to my father. "If you are behind, please go to the back." And another young lady came out. No fake shell, raw melon seed noodles, red lips, drinking wine with my father. The man's happiness, the woman's jealousy, and the servant's intrigue are all flowing freely. However, the calm river of life is suddenly filled with murderous intent. The snow lion raised by Pan Jinlian finally took action, and it lived up to Pan Jinlian's daily training of wrapping meat in red silk. In the matter of murdering the official brother, Pan Jinlian showed his qualities as a politician. Before the snow lion stretched out its claws to raise the child, Pan Jinlian had enough public opinion foreshadowing. In the 57th chapter, she yelled, "You are a shameless, spleen-deficient stinking prostitute, but you know how to raise a son. You have never passed 3 yellow plums, and for summer solstices. And you have never grown up to 15 or 16 years old." He passed the test at a young age and went to school, but he was still a blister. He was raised here with King Yima. How could he become an official when he saw it and give the old lady a title as a gift? The authenticity of this statement has been questioned. There is no yellow plum sky in the north. The so-called 3 yellow plums, and for summer solstice, are probably made up by the book writers. However, the vicious words of the blisters raised here by the kings of Yamei and Luo, slightly modified, must have been widely circulated in Ximen Mansion. In the 58th chapter, Li Pinger printed scriptures for his son, and Meng Yulu commented, "Sisterly, it is a waste of money. If he is your son or daughter, even a hammer will not kill him. If he is not your son or daughter, he will not die. If you talk about giving up scriptures and making statues, no matter what you do, you can't keep him. Believe me, I won't be able to do anything." This remark certainly criticized the sister-in-law's greed for talking nonsense, but it also showed the prevailing attitude towards the death of children at that time. Regardless of whether you are rich or poor, the mortality rate of children in ancient times was astonishingly high. The cruel fact makes people have a psychological mechanism to deal with it. Those who are broken have no fate. They are not your children. They are debt collectors who have been around in a hurry. They are blisters in the human world fostered by King Yema. Pan Jinlian had already made great efforts to raise public opinion by taking advantage of the fact that Guanzhi was sick. Although Simon King loved brother Guan, a little love could not match his sensuality. Simon King is like some fathers today who insist on giving their babies a taste of white wine. They think that other people's dissuasion is just making a fuss, and that children who are frightened and injured are naturally cowardly. In the final analysis, Satisfying yourself is the most important thing. He took the child to the grave, played gongs and drums, and frightened the officer's brother so much that he fell down in his arms and died. There are all kinds of banquets at his house every day, and from time to time the sound shakes the sky and stops the moving clouds. Needless to say, there are all kinds of noises, and there are people like Pan Jinlian with ulterior motives hovering nearby, taking the opportunity to intimidate and fool them from time to time. The children will inevitably become sick and weak, and they will not receive good medical care. Simon King was dedicated to hiring a doctor for Li Ping'er. He had a seat as a medical officer at his birthday party. Wasn't it for Li Ping'er? However, he did not treat Guang'er wholeheartedly, not entirely his fault. Most of the official brothers are not sick, but have been tortured by the Simon family. Therefore, Mrs. Lia's method often works. Li Ping'er also developed a dependence on Mrs. Liu. The snow lion stretched out a fatal claw. Guang'er was so frightened that he twitched. Li Ping'er was confused, and Wu Yunyang looked on coldly. She neither called a pediatrician nor sent someone to call Simon King. Instead, she encouraged the anxious and confused Li Ping'er to take responsibility on her own. Who dares to delay? He has to wait for his father to come and ask. Don't dare, if he gets moxibustion. He comes to the house and screams. Brother Guan's death was expected. His biological father, Simon King, just fell to death from a snow lion. He sighed and accepted the fact. The culprit Pan Jinlian was unscathed. In Simon King's eyes, it was just a coincidence that the snow lion scared the child. The child has always been timid and weak, so this disaster can be regarded as a disaster. The rest of the Simon family are naturally happy to be freeloaders. Only Li Ping'er's sadness was unexpected. She watched over him day and night when Brother Guan was alive. When Brother Guan died, she was heartbroken. As soon as Guang'er died, she scratched her ears and cheeks, hit her head on the ground, and cried until she fainted. Guang'er was carried out, and she hugged him with both hands, willing to put him there. Guang'er's coffin was raised, and she bumped her head against the door, bruised his forehead, and the golden hairpin fell to the ground. All explanations pale before this sorrow. Simon King rested in his room for 3 nights in a row, trying to persuade him in every possible way on his pillow. Ansu recited the Shrangama Sutra and the mantra for the solution of injustice for him at night, trying to persuade him that the child who died in infancy was just an enemy and creditor from the previous life. Wu Yin'er persuaded her, Brother Guan is crying and can't live anymore. He must relieve himself and sigh. And don't just worry about it. Sun Zui, who had just been ridiculed by Pan Jinlian and Meng Yulu, shared the same hatred. You are young and young. What if you worry that you will not be able to raise your children tomorrow? There are cracks in the wall here. There are eyes in the wall. I can tell. He made his heart use your heart, but it will only make you tired. He harmed your child. Teach him to retaliate and ask for his life. I don't know how many times you and I have been buried alive by him. As long as the man always guards him, it will be fine. He sleeps in a house. One night, he was so angry that he died. It was the former. As you know, every time, the man couldn't wait to get behind me. But as soon as he got there, you see, he started chirping behind his back and said every word about me to his sister. I don't know what to say. I don't say anything at all. I look at him every day. This whore will still be dead tomorrow. No one can weep with those who weep. Ansu just wanted to make money, so she described the deceased official brother as a yaksha who came to take revenge, but she couldn't do it because she gave up the scriptures. These words may be useful to selfish and ignorant women, but for a mother, like Li Ping'er who loves her children deeply, it is really painful. Wu Yin'er is an unintentional person, and the so-called persuasion is correct nonsense. Sun Zui was a thoughtful person and wanted to inspire Li Ping'er to subdue Pan Jinlian, but Li Ping'er's heart turned to despair. In Simon King's world, power and wealth are hot, and there are more good days than leaves. What does an official mean? He does not know who has tolled the death knell, does not know for whom the death knell is tolling, does not know that the days as numerous as leaves will run out. Just as spring will pass and autumn has arrived. A closer look at chapter 60 of Jin Ping Mei. What did you exchange for fate? If I had a choice, I would be reluctant to explain chapter 60 in detail. What it describes is not death, but the waiting before death, which may be a more painful and confusing stage. People are mortal, but no one believes that they will die. We cover up death intentionally or unintentionally, as if it is just an accident. Needless to say about Chinese culture, for a still an unlucky number, other cultures may not be much stronger. The so-called eternal other shore. Isn't it to continue the fragile and short-lived shore? And to be unwilling to die. The beauty of life depends precisely on the eternity of death. When you stare into the abyss stares into you. Death is an abyss that we cannot escape and cannot bear to look into. After losing Guangir, Li Ping'er was still young. Those who loved her, those who hated her, and even herself did not know that death was so close. Her enemy Pan Jinlian has cheered up and is launching a new round of violent attacks. Whore, I only said that your sun always rings at noon. But why is it the wrong time today? Your turtle dove has dropped its eggs. And you have lost your voice. The spring stool has folded its backrest. There is no chair left. Mrs. Wang sold the mill. She can't push it anymore. The old madam died. There's no hope. But she's just like me. The sweetness of death nourished Pan Jinlian's anger and exhausted Li Ping'er of vitality. When the autumn wind blows, old friends come under the moon. Li Ping'er met Hua Zixu. This nihilistic man actually appeared in Li Ping'er's life. He hugged Guangir, found a new house, and asked Li Ping'er to live with him. Having a husband, children, and a home can be as frightening as it is cozy. Li Ping'er, who has money in her hand, did not have to live next door to Pan Jinlian and endure the constant harsh criticism. However, with her huge wealth, she pleased Simon King's wives and concubines, and became the sixth wife of Simon's house. Feeling wronged? Is it reasonable? How coldly did she watch Hanako faint from exhaustion and be dragged away by a typhoid fever? How happily she sent Zhang Jushan away from home. Why did Simon King alone become Li Ping'er's medicine? What did she get from him? So infatuated that she never realized it in her life. Sexual satisfaction may only be superficial. And what Li Ping'er seeks is probably stability. This became her belonging in her life. And it was also her desire in her short life. We gained the right to physiological survival in the battle of thousands of troops. After erupting from the mother's womb, we are faced with Faustian confusion. What will satisfy you in this life? Unfortunately, most people are not as lucky as Faust, who signs a contract with the devil and starts over. Many people will never touch this issue throughout their lives. When more people are vaguely aware of it, time is running out. Li Ping'er is addicted to the stability in front of her, while Simon King chases his desires. Contrast is a common technique in Jin Ping Mei. In the previous episode, Simon's return home on a snowy night was so warm, while Pan Jinlian's peep-poo on a snowy night was so cold. The same goes for chapter 60. Li Ping'er was so lonely when she went to death, and Simon King was so noisy when he fell into death. Li Ping'er's stream meeting Zixu only contains a few lines, while Simon King's lively banquet is so detailed that it's a bit long-winded. The satin shop opens on the 4th day of September, and relatives, friends and colleagues help hand out fruit boxes and hang them in red. Simon King wore bright red, with a neat crown and ribbon, burned paper, and entertained everyone. Relatives, friends, clerks, supervisors, and neighbors filled the 15 tables. Musicians played and sang, and there were acrobatics and drums. At sunset, the opening banquet ended, leaving Uncle Wu, Uncle Shen, Uncle Han, Wen Quickshuan, Earl Ying, Zizida and others to have a private banquet. In the evening, after closing the shop, Gai Gan, Gai Han, Gai Fu, Chui Ben, Bai Silian and Chen Jingji were all invited to the banquet to drink. After all, the satin shop sold more than 500 taels of silver on the opening day. Simon King's new favorite Zheng Aiyu has not yet arrived, but her name has already arrived. Her brother Zheng Chun has attracted the ridicule of Earl Ying. Brother, congratulations for raising your brother-in-law again. Count Ying ordered a large glass of wine, listened to the music, and made jokes without any delay, but drinking randomly was not a problem. They finally followed the drinking order. Follow the numbers and ask for a flower name when you meet someone. The flower name should be true to the word, and it should not be limited to poems, lyrics, or songs. This wine order is naturally not as good as Wu Shangshan's ice mirror, but Gaira's reminder is also full of hints of fate. Simon King's throw was 6. Sixth throw is full of stars, and the stars are cold in the blue pool water. The lovable Earl Ying added, "Brother, it will be winter this year. I will take care of things and get a job and a salary. I have something to celebrate." Yes, he will go to Beijing in the winter, and he will be promoted in the winter, but it's a pity that the red horse is too short. Just like the banquet in front of him is also late. The next day, Li Zi and Huang Xilai paid back 350 taels of silver. Simon King thought of the Changji festival in the autumn wind and took the initiative to give 50 taels. Buying a house with 35 taels and opening a small shop with the rest is enough for the Chamey couple to live a stable life. Yes, but who can really be stable in this chaotic world?
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.